cheers. You brought wine and you have made my day. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Welcome to Spark TV.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to be drinking wine on a Wednesday afternoon.
So good. Look, I do it Monday through Sunday if I could. So thank you. Let's start out by telling our fabulous Spark community who you are and what you do.
Sure. So, yep, I'm Sarah Spence, and I am the CEO of Content Copywriting. We are a strategic content marketing agency, which is just basically a kind of fancy way, I guess, of saying that we are really curious about our clients and what they're facing, the issues they have, who their audience is, all of that stuff. And that curiosity means that we can create some pretty awesome strategies for them, and then the content behind those strategies to roll them all out.
I love that because so many people struggle with content. It was really interesting. I had a conversation with somebody. So I live in the middle of nowhere. I live in a regional town in Australia. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day about social media, and because regional towns tend to be a little bit later on the social media bandwagon. Everyone's on Facebook, not so much on the Instagram and TikTok. And we're talking about what businesses struggle with. And a lot of them really do struggle to articulate who they are, what they stand for, to talk about themselves. So I imagine having somebody like you that can actually sit down with them and be curious and seek to understand what they're all about would be amazingly helpful.
Well, that's the aim. But even just, I mean, I'm pretty confident these days in saying the what it is we do and who we do it for and stuff. But the who am I in that? I only just recently promoted myself to CEO, which
Oh, I love that.
still feels really weird. And I was very careful not to cringe as I said it just there.
You sounded like a boss. I was impressed. So,
Okay.
and I still am. So, but
Thank
you're
you.
so right though. It is interesting. I saw so this is Spark, obviously. My other business is Scrunch, and I call myself a CEO there because we're like a tech startup. So we've got investors and someone had to be the CEO and blah, blah, blah. And I never thought much about it until I saw somebody kind of bag out people that call themselves CEOs. And I was like, oh, I have to. I am the CEO. What the hell?
Yeah.
So I love that you call yourself the CEO because you bloody are.
Well, yeah, and I never thought anything about it. My previous title, I guess, was founder, as my
Mm.
business founder and strategic director. That's what I call myself. And then someone that I spoke to actually bagged me out for not representing what it is I actually do in my titles, because they're like, well, founder just means you started it.
Yeah.
And you don't even really do the strategies that much anymore. You've got a team who do that. Like, what do you actually do? And I'm like, well, I run the business. Like, well, that makes you a CEO then. But segue, sorry, but I segue a lot.
Do.
We just got our team together last week for a team retreat, which is amazing. We're all fully remote. So we come together
Mm.
kind of once or twice a year. We
Mm.
had 3 amazing days together, but it was near where I live. And so I drove, and my car, which is 13 years old now, like an old Mazda CX-7, bits of it are falling off,
Love it.
um,
Yep.
but the number plate that I was randomly assigned 13 years ago when I got the car says CEO
Stop.
338Z, and I'm 38.
Oh my God.
I know. And
This
so
is this is going to be a woo-woo conversation, isn't
but it
it?
is, I have been and a few of the people in my
Oh
team are really totally amazingly woo-woo, and they're like, your car has been manifesting for you for 13 years.
my God. I love that so much. Seriously.
But now I'm just so embarrassed about it.
Because
Because
now it's like a personalized number plate.
yes. And actually, one of our new team members thought that I'd chosen it. And I'm like, no, that is not the kind of person I am. But then I said, right, so when I get a new car, I really want to get an electric. Like when I get one, I'm not going to keep the number plate. And then Lee and our team was like, but if you get rid of it, that could jinx everything. And so now I'm like, oh, I don't know what to
Now
do.
you're torn. Oh my God, that is hilarious. That is so cool, right? Like
So
you've probably
random.
been, walking to your car every morning and seeing CEO, and it's just been happening.
It's like, that is not generally where my brain operates. So it's weird, but I can't deny that it is a weird coincidence that this is when it's happened, because this was never in the plan. I never set out to do this. I never set out to grow this business. That was not, yeah.
What did you set out to do then?
Good question. So what I primarily set out to do when I had my first child, who's now 8.5, was I set out to not have to go back to a
Um,
senior corporate role.
mhm.
I didn't want to have to go back into that corporate environment. I found it really toxic. I mean, I had a great career in that space, but I just didn't want to go back there as a mother.
Mm.
And so I sought to gain an income by freelancing. I've always done copywriting, always, been the one who proofreads other people's stuff and whatever. And I
Mm.
had done a master's in linguistics. And so it's like, okay, I'll do freelance copywriting. I started to tack on strategy and SEO and other things to it, but it grew in between my two babes. It grew to the point where I landed some pretty big clients. I started working with Sheridan, with Lendlease, like some pretty big names. And I totally just freaked out because it was too much. And I didn't know how, I didn't know if I didn't want this. I didn't even know what I wanted. I was still
Yeah.
had a toddler. We were about to have another baby. Like, I didn't know what was going on. So I shut the whole thing down. I had a pretty tough physical pregnancy second time around, so I couldn't really work anyway.
Mm.
And then coming back out of that second pregnancy and that second kind of parental leave, I got a part-time job at an agency, and I didn't really love that. And my husband was like, look, if you're going to do this, can you just bloody well give it a shot? And I was like, oh, but what if we don't, I'm not going to earn enough money. It's all going to be a problem.
Mm.
And he was like, just try it.
Mm.
So that was towards the end of 2019. Of course, things went quiet for a few months there around March 2020, this
Yes, yes.
virus that hit out. But I hired my first person at the end of 2020. By the end of 2021, there were 4 of us, I think it was, or 6 of us. And then by the end of last year, 2022, there was 16 of us, and then another 4 joined in
Holy.
January. So we're now a team of 20. And it just kind of started growing, and I was like, okay, I hired one person. I was like, right, I have an obligation to this person to keep the wheels turning.
Yeah.
And then hired some more, and okay, I want to keep the wheels turning for them. And along the way, I think also just really I've come to understand that what we do is quite different in a good way,
Mm.
that there is a market for us. And I've worked hard to feel confident enough in the future of it all to like not want to just burn the whole thing down all the time.
Well, so that was a question that I wanted to ask was how do you feel? How does having 20 staff make you feel?
Very good question. Up until about 6 months ago, it was incredibly stressful. And we didn't even have 20 at that point. I think at the point at which I made a shift in my thinking around this, I had 13.
Mm.
I know that because I was at an incredible retreat run by my coach, Amy at Craft Coaching and Development. And she did this activity with us where we had to write down, what are you holding? What are you holding on to? What are you
Mm.
carrying? Why are you carrying it? Like, it was all these very subtle variations on these questions. And I realized, amongst other things, amongst mental load, amongst, trying to be the perfect mum, all of that stuff. But one of the things I was really holding on to and was feeling a weight from was 13 people's lives and livelihoods.
Yep.
And she then invited us to this exercise where we wrote down whatever we wanted to let go of on a Post-it, and we ceremoniously burnt it.
This should happen in business a lot more.
I just did this exact exercise with our team last week at the retreat, and a few
Awesome.
of us burned things. And I actually decided, I think I actually need to do it monthly,
Yeah.
as just ask myself, like, what am I holding?
Mm.
What am I holding on to? What's holding me back? What am I carrying? What's this weight I can feel? And
Yeah.
journal it down. and then write a few of those big things on Post-it notes and just burn them, because it was a really instrumental moment in my life where I decided to let that go. And instead I shifted. I'm never going to not care. I really love
Of
people.
course. Yeah.
But there is a distinction between caring and carrying. And so now it's this mantra that goes through my head. It's like, well, I'm going to care, but I'm not going to carry the weight of that, because I know that I am always doing absolutely everything I can to ensure that I can continue to employ these people. But if stuff happens that's outside of my control, and I do everything I can to try and still control it, and it still doesn't work out, like, that's going to be hard for me and sad for me to let someone go.
Yeah.
But I can't just hold on to the weight of that all the time. It's too detrimental.
It really is. And I love that you've said it, because I reflect on my own team experience. And you're so right. Like, I'm just having like a moment of clarity, like, because I've often said on this podcast, because we at the peak of Scrunch, we had like 20 odd people, and I just felt like I was working to keep people employed. Like, it felt really, really heavy. And then obviously COVID happened, all the things, and we're fully remote now as well, and a smaller team. But I've always said that, like, and we have a lot more freelancers and like people in a lot, I guess, less full-time employees now. And I've specifically done that because I really struggled with the weight of heaps of full-time employees. But really interesting then, the connection with being the CEO. Like, it's your job to care but not to carry, right? Like, as I just reflect on everything you've said, you are so right. Like, you will do everything in your power to make sure the business is the most successful that it can be.
Always.
But it is not your job to walk around with 20 people standing on your shoulder.
No, because I can't, like, we just, be completely honest about it. We just lost a really big client. They're in the tech space. There's lots of redundancies happening. Like, of course, we were on the chopping block, and it's a big chunk of budget. And I think if I were a potentially maybe a more seasoned business professional, or I was of, one of the other genders, that, maybe is a bit more kind of hard hitting about this stuff, I would probably be letting people go right now. But I'm not going to, because I want to give myself a month to see if I can sort it out.
And
also,
you probably will, because you've set yourself that goal. Instead of reacting to a situation, you've gone, how do I solve this situation?
I reacted. I drank a lot of wine.
Well, obviously that is step number one.
Yes, step number one. And then I took a breath, and I took a few days, and I worked with my amazing senior team, and we've, come up with some good solutions and good ideas. And we've got plenty of opportunities in the pipeline. But one of my jobs now as a CEO is to ensure business resilience. And what I'm hoping I can do is to ensure that we're resilient enough that we can just make it through this patch until all those opportunities kind of come to fruition. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
I love it. I know, I love it. I think it is an honest and practical approach to business. And, I think it's important to have these conversations, because, well, on a few levels, but obviously we are seeing all of the redundancies play out on LinkedIn, right? And I think there's a different lens that happens as a business owner seeing that. And you look at that and you go, I know exactly why they had to do that, because that's business. When you lose money, you can't afford to keep paying people money. But I also feel like there's, looking at it from an employee's point of view, there's sometimes not quite an understanding of why things happen. So that's why I think it is really important to have these open, honest discussions about, what do you do? How can you, do you react? Do you put a plan in place? Like, I love that you used the words business resiliency, because yes, as CEO or founder or whatever we're calling ourselves on this podcast, that is your job.
Yeah. And it's what's been such a, can I swear?
Oh, please.
Okay. Such a head fuck. Okay, good. Such a head fuck for me is that I 2 and a bit years ago, I was a freelance copywriter, and
Yeah.
I was in a senior marketing management role at my last corporate job, but I had like one direct report. I've never been a leader at this scale, so I've had to learn
Mm.
how to do that. And I've made so many mistakes, but I've learnt from them all. And I'm just, endlessly curious anyway. So I'm always like, oh, okay, that situation didn't go well. Wait, okay, let's do a little dissection and figure out what happened
Mm.
there. And learn from it and try and not repeat that mistake. But like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just used to write the copy and now I'm like, doing all this stuff. And every time I say that to my team, they're like, can you stop? You do know what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
stop talking yourself down and all the rest. But yeah.
I feel like we do that as women a little bit too much, don't we? We downplay our, call it our little business or our little this, our little that. And, and kind of as much as, we are the ones who are working night and day to make this a reality impossible, we still do that. I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it. And it's like, no, you're not. You are literally upskilling, like managing these people, like working your ass off, but we don't give ourselves enough credit, I don't think.
It's a really big issue, especially, women who become mothers and then are doing either career or a business that they feel passionately about, but they themselves don't treat it, because I was one of them, don't treat it with the respect that it deserves, and therefore nobody else in their lives do either. Like I used to, still think that because I was working from home, I should, have the house tidy and clean and do a load of washing and whatever else. It's like, just because my office was my home doesn't mean I should be attending to home duties while I'm like, I just, and my mum would pop in for a cup of tea, and they're like, there were no boundaries.
Yeah.
And it
That
was,
pisses me off because I work from home as well. I've got everyone's remote at Scrunch and Spark. And I often think that, even to the point where, so we're in a rental property for my partner's business leases it. And
Mhm.
it's like all of these people just think that they can come in and do maintenance and do bits and pieces. And I'm like, I'm in a meeting or I'm on a podcast recording. Like you can't just knock at my door and come in and expect to do things. Like there is no respect for businesses that operate from home. It drives me crazy.
Do you think that's changed as a result of COVID though? Like I'm hoping it kind of has, but I don't know.
I don't think people who don't run a business understand it. I think
Yeah.
I think we get it, and I think we value it. Doesn't matter where you work. Someone asked me that the other day, has your business changed since you went remote? And I was like, no, I still do things from a laptop. But I think people who don't operate businesses
Yeah.
don't quite get it. They think that you're at home. And I also don't have kids. And
Mhm.
I think that everyone thinks I stay home and manage the household and the children. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'm working.
Yeah, which is very valid. I think it's so hard when you have your own business, no matter what size it is, but to be both the employer and the employee. And
Mm,
you just, I think for like, I didn't really realize that distinction for so long, that, what I was doing was valuable. And I was doing work that was, effectively billable work, if you want to look at it from that angle. And then there was
mm,
non-billable work, which was when I was working on the business. So on the
mm.
business versus in the business. And, um, but like being your own boss, it's all lauded as being,
So
girl boss,
glamorous.
whatever. Yeah. And it's,
Drinking champagne at midday.
well, I mean, maybe we've made it, Danielle. Maybe this
Maybe
is
we've
us.
nailed it.
We've nailed it. I won't tell you about the 6 other meetings I've already had today, and the
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah, the 5 seconds I had to scoff some lunch and all of that other stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum, I think, for so many of us, because so many, especially so many women, have got some fantastic ideas and really great ways of approaching things and great ideas for businesses. But then they get into it and then they really struggle with the working on the business versus in the business, and just having like yourself as a boss is really,
Mm.
it's actually not, I don't think it's a particularly healthy
No, I'm the
way
most
to
awful
be.
boss.
Yeah.
Seriously, the things I say to myself sometimes, I would be fired if anyone
Yeah,
knew.
you'd be taken to Fair Work.
I would be taken to Fair Work.
That's a really good way to look at it. Like, if you said that to someone else in your team, what you're saying to yourself right now, would that pass the muster for being appropriate? That
How
negative
have
self-talk.
you, no, totally. How
Mm.
have you actually come to figure that out, the difference between working on your business and in your business? Like, as there is, obviously it's been a process, but
Mm.
have there been things that have helped you get to a point where you can recognize the difference? Because I actually still struggle with, so some things that I do, I almost feel like if I'm not the worker bee and not doing productive things, I go, well, that's wasting time or it's not whatever. But I'm like, no, you have to do the CEO hat stuff. Otherwise, you're an employee, and that's not what you want. You don't want to just work for a wage. You want to build a profitable, sustainable, scalable business. You have to do that stuff. But I do struggle sometimes seeing value in the CEO hat stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't really know, to be honest. There's probably been a couple of big milestones that have helped me. Probably the first being not having any safety net and actually just going,
Mm.
okay, if this is, and I've always been the higher earner in my partnership with my husband. We've been together for 14 years. He has a career that he loves, but it's not a particularly high earning career. So that's always been me anyway.
Mm.
And when I kind of went, okay, I'm letting go of the safety net of a part-time role and I'm going to give this my all, it forced me to really step up in a lot of those spaces.
Yeah.
Um, Another would have been ending up with quite a good senior team around me who can enact the ideas that I have as the CEO. Like, I really align to Mia
Mm.
Freeman's moniker that she has around the office, which is Glitter Bomb Fairy. Because she has ADHD. She received a late in life diagnosis. I also received a late in life diagnosis. And it's that kind of whole thing where you like walk into a meeting and you just go with this idea, and it's like you've just spread glitter everywhere, and then you bugger off because you're a fairy and you just fly away. And your team is left to literally try and you know what glitter's like to try and clean up, right? Like,
Mhm, mhm.
so my senior team are amazing at helping me go, okay, great glitter bomb idea. This is the jar for the purple glitter and this is the jar for the red glitter, and give us what we need to get it into here. Okay, and how would you like us to sprinkle it? Or here's our idea for how to sprinkle that glitter to make a nice calm picture.
Mm.
And that stops me as well from needing to fly away, because I'm not kind of scared of the detail anymore, because I've never been great at the real detail, which is
Yeah.
what you need to grow a business. So it's been that, and then also working with an amazing accounting and advisory firm who helped me understand literally the actual financial nuts and bolts of the difference between, employee versus employer time, the CEO time versus the doing time, and the
Yeah.
impact that actually in my role now, if I spend too much time doing the do, then there is actually this whole range of things that need to happen in the business that don't get done.
Yes.
And there is value in doing those, like in improving the presence, like spending time sitting here drinking wine with you. Like,
Yeah.
previously, I would have felt so guilty about that, because I'm like, well, I wouldn't have even said yes to the opportunity, because I would have thought, no, I need to be like my team are doing, I need to do.
Mm.
And now I realize actually that this is incredibly valuable. This is a valuable use of my time. And so I'm
Well,
able
and
to.
the interesting thing is you're actually the only one in the business that can do this as well. You are the figurehead, you are the brand, as much as there's a brand separate to your personal brand, like as the CEO or as the founder, not doing these things is doing the business a disservice.
Well, that's it. And even though like I'm as an individual, I'm deeply uncomfortable about being that role and that figurehead, I've also just, again, I guess I've just kind of been like lovingly forced into
Mm.
this is what the business requires. And this is, if you do, care about these people and care about the vision that we've created together and all the rest, then this is what's necessary now. So here I am.
I love it. So you mentioned getting a late in life ADHD diagnosis.
Mhm.
What has that been like as a business owner?
Ah, um, well, so I received it at the end of 2021, and it made a lot of things make sense for me. So I've had quite a long history of mental illness and periods of quite debilitating panic disorder and generalized anxiety disorder.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, at one point I couldn't really even get out of bed. I've had like really, really severe fears of flying. I had a severe fear of tunnels at one point. Like I've had all of these not weird, they're not weird, but these different triggers
Mm,
that had, I look back now, like a really substantial impact on my life and the life
mm,
of my friends and my family. Um, so a lot of what it did for me was it gave me a why, because for me, I really struggled with the fact that even though I saw her yesterday, I've been seeing the same psychologist since I was 21.
yeah.
I know how to manage my brain and do all the things that keep me mentally healthy. And even through periods of crisis, I can surface out of them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like, even at the age, I think it was 36, the end of 2020, a big thing happened in my personal life. And I was like, how have I not learned? Like, what is going on where this is like, I do all the work and I still do the
Mm,
thing. And I just was like, this is
frustrating.
frustrating. And it
Mm,
surely can't, like, it can't be the norm, because sure, people go through periods of mental illness, but like I just have this
mm,
cyclic, flow of it basically.
yeah.
Um, so I saw the diagnosis, and then uh, by the point at which I actually got to speak to someone, it was more like, okay, yes. I was pretty certain I had it by that point, and I've since come to learn that actually self-diagnosis is very valid in this space, because the access to psychiatrists, who at the moment in Australia are the only ones who can diagnose uh, neurodivergent conditions,
Mm,
is incredibly hard. So lots of people do self-diagnose. But anyway, got the diagnosis and then went through quite a significant period of grief. A lot of like, oh gosh, life could have been so much easier. Just thinking back through everything through this lens of going, oh, that makes sense now.
yeah.
Like, it makes sense to me now why my friends in year 8 sat me down at the end of term 2 and presented me with a letter that literally was titled, "Why You Can't Sit With Us from Next Term."
No way.
And the first bullet point was, "Because you're too much."
Oh my God.
And now I'm like, "Oh, I get that now. I actually wasn't too much. I just didn't know how to regulate in a neurotypical society."
Holy shit.
That was like one example. We don't need to go into my childhood bullying
No, no,
trauma,
no.
but
But I'm painting the picture. I'm painting the picture. That's
yeah.
full on. That is,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's been, but like a lot of that, like the big thing that happened at the end of 2020 ended up being a massive bust up between our best friends and us, and of which
Mm,
I instigated and take full responsibility for. But like, I was like, why? Like,
how
I
are you
don't
doing?
understand what happened. And it was because of impulsivity. It was
Mm,
because of alcohol. Like just, and I said some things and like it, I don't know. Anyway, it triggered for me like this must be something more than
yeah. Yeah.
just generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder. Anyway, so I went through definitely a period of grief, looking back through everything, and now I'm in, I guess, a stage of just still very much enjoying all the reels on the Instagram of like, oh, and sending them repetitively to my husband, like, oh yeah, this is
Love that. Yes.
and
Thank
slowly
God for Instagram Reels,
oh,
educating us all.
for Instagram reels. And slowly unmasking as well, and trying not to hate myself too much
Yeah.
for trying. Like we had a big meeting yesterday with a bunch of people in the team and things, and I heard myself. I was like, so if in order to not have the chaos that can come with me, here's, Sophie's going to do this thing for you. And then I was like, I shouldn't, like, why? I need to look at that. Like, why do I still feel negatively about myself, about
Mm,
sometimes the chaos, because I think I'm allowing the chaos more now because I'm not trying to mask as much, but
Yeah.
also I clearly haven't kind of really loved on myself and gone, do you know what, that chaos has value,
Mm.
and kind of reclaimed that word a bit for myself. I should do that.
Yes. So I just had like some interesting thoughts happen for me then was is there a language problem? And let me just caveat everything I'm about to say by the fact that I'm not experiencing this. I'm an observer. And so I hope I don't say anything that is disrespectful.
That's okay.
But I just was listening to you and I was like, is it is there a bit of a language problem around, people who have these traits say the words chaos because that's what everyone else's experience might be like, or how they've described it in the past, versus are there ways of articulating and language that can be used that is a little bit more empowering and positive
Yeah.
to help people? Because the thing I thought of as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, but you're probably the one that has the best fucking ideas, because maybe it is a little chaotic and you throw out everything, versus some people who are like, maybe they have a couple of good ideas, but they don't say anything because they do hold back and have a bit more of a filter,
Impulse control.
whatever it is. But I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. Like if
No,
you're,
well,
I
yeah,
don't
in the position I'm in now, like, yeah, I mean, it is a good thing. And you're right. I do struggle with, I get stuck in language ruts where I
know.
use particular words and over and over again. And I now know that's just part of how my brain works. But yeah, I probably have like cottoned on to chaos a bit too much recently, and I need to relook at that. But yeah, I mean, like I caused positive ideas zone or something. I don't know. I have to think about that. But today, when I happened to comment on one of my friends' posts who was on LinkedIn, who was looking for someone to help them with ChatGPT and AI and figure out how they should implement it in their agency.
Mm.
And we've just done that whole process. We've managed to reduce efforts on some of the content that we create by 50%, which
Wow, that's cool.
when you're selling time and people's brain power, that's pretty awesome.
Yes.
And we're about to, I say about to, we'd kind of scheduled it for maybe June to kind of do a rent my brain for a couple of hours. I'll come take a look at what your setup is like, either in brands or in agencies, and help you figure it out.
That's cool. That's super
Um,
cool.
so I replied to her thing though, going, "Oh, hi, that's me. I can do that." And then my whole LinkedIn just blew up and I had all these DMs. And then I went rogue and I created a graphic on Canva and I put that up on LinkedIn. And I was like, so everyone's now talking about this thing. So I'm just going to launch it early. And now if you want to hire my brain for a few hours, here's how you do it. And the team are just like, okay. But they do.
So about that strategy.
That the
I
whole
think it's fucking cool though, because people fuck around with ideas
Mm,
and making it perfect and doing this and doing that. And I'm so on board with the launch before you're ready, launch early. Like if you're seeing a signal, get it
yeah.
out there, because otherwise someone else is going to do it, or B, you're going to sit there perfecting it, or C, you're going to sit there crafting to what you think it should be and then no one wants it.
Yeah.
So I think that that's brilliant. I'm on your team.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I approve. I approve.
Okay.
But interesting, thinking of just talking about your team, you mentioned a couple of times that they are all remote,
Mm-hmm.
which I totally dig. What's that like? What is that? Was it a conscious decision? How do you find managing a remote team? What do you think the optics are to clients? Talk to me about your
Oh,
remote team
interesting
vibe.
about that. Yeah. So, look, I think it's great. I don't think that I could be in an office 5 days a week anymore. Although in saying that, I work at a co-working place 5 days a week. But the best part of that is that none of them are actually my colleagues.
Mm.
So, and I don't really have that much time to chat anyway, but it's just nice to be around people, but not be needed by them.
Right.
So that works well for me. But yes, it was a conscious decision because when I first started hiring people, I guess actually I did hire someone near to me to begin with. And then, and we worked together for a while, and then she left. And I think I just decided, look, I just don't want someone to be right next to me all the time.
Mm.
I now think that it's probably got quite a bit to do with my neurodivergence and just how much people kind of take it out of me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a conscious decision. Now it's fantastic because when we hire, we don't have to hire based on a geographical area. I
Mm.
also I'm on the Central Coast, north of Sydney. So, there's physically less people here to be able to choose from anyway. So we've been able to just hire the best talent for the job. And we've been able to create a culture and environment that actually works for women. That's not, we don't do presenteeism, by the clock. We all have
Mm.
to time track. That's agency. That's just what you have to do. But presenteeism matters for us in terms of task completion, and in terms of quality,
Yeah.
and in terms of, a psychologically safe workplace.
Mm.
Like, we've got the opportunity to provide something to people who are, otherwise, like, let's say freelancing, who are feeling pretty lonely, and
Yeah.
who, want to feel a sense of connection. And so that's why we're like, we'll be in this team and be part of this environment, and we can offer that to them. But the optics for clients, I mean, I guess pre-COVID would have been very different to now, because
I agree.
yeah, I don't think there's ever been anyone who said, oh, we're not keen on you guys because you're all remote, because it's pretty clear we can do a good job, even probably because we are remote, to be fair, because we're not
Mm.
making people commute. We're not adding to their life stress by making them have to put their, kids into
Yeah.
long hours of before and after school care, or, school holiday activities. Like, if you're, I mean, obviously age appropriate, if they're really small, it's not really going to work. But, if they're teenagers and they're just, in and around the house, like, you don't need to put them somewhere. You can
Yeah.
just be and still do a great job. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting benefits of COVID, is that it really forced quite an accelerated mindset change. I remember pre-COVID, so we had the big fancy office,
Mhm.
and I was on a plane twice a week because I was in Brisbane.
Mhm.
So Sydney, Melbourne people wanted in-person meetings, and which was very exhausting, but hilarious how no one wants a meeting now. Like,
I
well, I
know.
mean, I'm on Zoom all the time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no one gives a shit about an in-person meeting
No.
now. It's just like, it's really interesting because I feel like, as a Brisbane-based business, that's a major city, right?
Mm.
And still I struggled because I was, had to spend money getting to other cities, trying to put up this front of being, huge and accessible. And now it's like, yeah, I live in Kalgoorlie
Mm.
now, which is like hours from anywhere, and no one knows the difference, because
Yeah.
we just keep delivering the results that they're paying for.
Yep.
So I just feel like I love it because it's just equalized the opportunity for smaller brands, smaller businesses,
Yeah.
freelancers. I just feel like it's opened up opportunity for people, which is really cool.
Absolutely. Because it definitely has leveled the playing field a lot.
Mm.
Like, ultimately, I mean, you can even, like, what's the word? Like, blur your background. So if
Yeah.
you're, sitting there with, like, pile of washing behind you, whatever, it doesn't even matter. I think
Mm.
well, I'd say it matters for your mindset and your confidence,
Yes.
but it doesn't actually matter from the client's perspective.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm.
Okay, last one for you, because otherwise I'm going to open a bottle of wine and we're going to talk all night. um,
Wouldn't mind that, to be fair,
yeah,
but yeah,
I
go.
know. I'm getting very comfortable here. So I would love you to reflect on your experience as starting a business.
Mhm.
We have a lot of people dialing in, listening into the podcast, who are new women in business. And, some of them are probably sitting there going, what the hell did I do? Any advice for women who are early in business, or maybe they've even got the idea and haven't taken the leap yet?
Mm.
Any advice that you reflect on and think, that's something that maybe you wish you knew, or, a piece of advice you'd dole out?
Yeah, for sure. I think the the biggest thread, I think, through my journey, from just not wanting to go back to corporate to doing freelance copywriting to kind of building that up and then freaking out and closing it down and then, doing where we're at now.
Mm,
Um, it's the biggest thing I've struggled with, but also my biggest asset has been confidence.
mm,
And for me, I feel like anytime that I'm really struggling with that, I just have to like find that little pilot light in my gut that's just generally it's always on. Like it's, what a pilot light is, right? It just stays on no matter what.
yeah.
But it's often just so teeny.
Mm,
And you got to do what you need to do in that moment on that day to
yeah.
like start to fan it a little so that it can kind of grow into that bigger flame. And that you just got to hold on to that confidence. And because that's what's going to carry you through. And doing like, for the mums out there, they'll know this reference, the doing Anna from Frozen 2, where she sings this beautiful song when she thinks that Elsa and Olaf have died. And she sings this song about doing the next right thing. And it's all about just taking a step and then a step again and not knowing where you're going to go or end up or how you're even going to move through it, but just do the next thing, just the next thing. And that's, I feel like when stuff gets really tough for me now, and always, I kind of just go back to, okay, like do have confidence that I'm worthy of this and that this is an idea worth exploring and that this is something worth doing. And so I just try whatever that needs to be. Maybe sometimes it's drinking a lot of wine. Sometimes it's, going for a walk. Sometimes it's just reaching out to someone on LinkedIn and just totally putting myself out there. I don't know, but just, yeah, find a way to fan that little pilot light of confidence and hold on to that as much as you can.
Oh my God, Sarah, you are absolutely incredible. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Thank
Thank you.
you so much for sharing your journey with us. That was absolutely incredible. I know everyone who has tuned into this episode will have just been glued to their AirPods. So I appreciate you. You're amazing.
Thank you. I will. I'm just going to try hard to take that compliment and not talk myself down. So yes, thank you very much. I've loved chatting to you, Danielle. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.